It's obvious the unthinkable is happening. With all the recent media distractions, most folks never saw it coming. But a few did. Their guts told them something very wrong was going on. And now the headlines are proving them right. The people in charge keep telling you that everything's fine and to stop noticing. But you know better. Folks are investing in emergency food storage, and you should too. My Patriot Supply, the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, are the ones you can trust. Go to mypatriotsupply.com and secure their best-selling 3-month emergency food kits. Each contains tasty breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, averaging over 2,000 calories per day. Get at least one for each family member. My Patriot Supply also sells biomass stoves, off-grid room heaters for when the power goes out, gravity-powered water filters, heirloom seeds, and survival gear that may come in handy soon. Go to mypatriotsupply.com today. It's time to prepare for what's coming. mypatriotsupply.com.
Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
If you really like this episode, please support our podcast by going to patreon.com/truecrimewives and get lots of great extras.
On the Good Wives Guide to True Crime, we discuss crimes that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Hey folks, it's time to grab your glass of wine because the Good Wives, Fancy, Colleen, and Christina, are about to serve up another true crime case. Walsh was one of the most significant missing child cases since the Lindbergh baby. His disappearance changed how the country looked at missing children. Before this, most cases were chalked up to runaways or disputes between parents. But Adam's disappearance and the 27-year journey to bringing justice to his case changed everything. Adam was a 6-year-old boy from Hollywood, Florida, and I was actually the same age as Adam. And I remember this happening and it's striking fear in like every parent's mind. My mother was super petrified about it. And it changed how every parent felt about leaving kids unattended to play, and how what we were allowed to do when we were going shopping. It just changed everything. So for 27 years, his case went unsolved, but that was largely due in part to one very stubborn and underqualified detective. It honestly could have been solved within 2 years of the case. So this one hits home for me because I remember it happening in live time, and it was probably my very first experience with true crime at all, because it was everywhere. It was on every news station. I remember I used to be able to go like, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to the toy section. It's 2 aisles over while you're, looking at, I don't care, whatever it is. And my mom would be like, okay, just stay right there. And then this happened. And then it was like no child could leave their parents' side.
Well, I was only 4 when Adam went missing, but I was 6 when the TV movie came out. And it was also my first experience with true crime. I remember it was one of those nights where they were watching, I think my grandmother was watching the movie and I couldn't sleep. And I went in the living room and she let me stay in there, and I ended up staying awake until it was over to watch this movie at 6 years old. And after that, I remember being in the mall, and it would be me, my brother, my aunt, and my grandmother, and they still had those actual video game displays where the kids would play, and my brother would beg to go play the video game, and my aunt would be like, go ahead, go, and my grandmother would be like, don't you remember what happened with that boy Adam? And I would remember hearing that, and this case probably was the one that got me interested as a young child, because I actually watched that movie at such a young age and it affected me.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up in an extremely small town. Like, I remember when I was a kid when the first stoplight was built and McDonald's was built. And I was able to ride my bike to the library and walk to the park. When I was only like 5 or 6 years old, I was doing that by myself. And it was fine. There was no problem doing that. But it really changed when I moved to a different town when I was older, and then moving to a bigger city and becoming more aware as a teenager, and then realizing what society is and understanding the dangers that really are posed to children. And it honestly is really frightening, and the possibilities that I was faced and that I could have been in danger.
Right. It definitely was a larger city concern when it first started. You know, it definitely was. I know you were quite a bit younger. You weren't around when this happened, but I mean, yeah, definitely. When it happened, it affected the big cities for sure. And even the middle-sized cities at the time. It was just something that had never happened before. There was never a national search for a kid. There was no national database. There was nothing. There was no protocols because it just didn't happen. It maybe slightly, you know, here or there something would happen, but nothing where it was linked like this or it was so heinous. I mean, his head was cut off, like, and they never found his body. And I mean, this was frightening. It was super frightening. And then I remember them creating Code Adam. That was the very first thing that, you know, like we all know what an Amber Alert is, but back in the day it was a Code Adam. And what they would do is, you know, a parent would say their child was missing or whatever, and they would shut down whatever it was, the store, or even at Disneyland they would shut down Disneyland. And there was a lot of that going on. In the 80s, Disneyland kids were coming up missing because there was we were so close, you know, to the border, and there were drug traffickers that were stealing little kids, and they were like taking their bodies and packing them with drugs and sending them back and forth across the border. And so that was where Code Adam started, and where they would close down something so that the people couldn't get out with the kids, you know. But yeah, I mean, this gripped the nation, and it really did change so much over this 27-year period. This family specifically, you know, John Walsh did so much. His wife, you know, she was always there, but he changed laws. He created national centers, and you know, it truly did change how missing children cases were taken seriously at this point.
Right. He turned something tragic into something really beneficial to millions of people.
Right.
This situation into something much better.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. We definitely have a much better system for this. It's just sad that we need it, you know?
Yeah.
It's terrible. And I think his was super brutal. Like, it just, we've never heard that before. Like, you know, not in a child situation, you know. Yes, there's lots of child murders, there's child molestation, there's all those things, but I don't think we've ever had another case like where we ended up with a head and no body, and it was terrifying. And you know, if I remember correctly, I actually was in Florida at that time, like, because we moved from Florida when I was in 3rd grade. We moved from Florida to California, so I wasn't too far from there. If I was in DeLand, which is just, you know, it's in that area. It's the same area of Florida. So, but so Otis Toole is the man who killed Adam, and he confessed it to like his entire family. He confessed it to law enforcement and just about anybody who would listen to him over 20 times. But the lead detective refused to believe him because he had his own main suspect and would not believe anything else. And in fact, Detective Jack Hoffman, which was the lead detective, he even tampered with evidence and accused other detectives of planting evidence to make Toole look guilty because he just didn't want to accept anything.
And if interesting note, Toole was the lover of Henry Lee Lucas. And you may know Lucas because of the new Netflix documentary, The Confession Killer. Lucas confessed to a slew of crimes he never committed. However, the one that he really did was killing Toole's niece, Becky Powell. Toole and Lucas confessed to hundreds of murders, over 600 at one point, but later recanted, and it was proven that most were not really committed by the two. Toole, in his first confessions, tried to finger Lucas as being present and sexually assaulting the severed head of Adam Walsh, but it was later learned that Lucas was in jail when the incident happened. But Toole wanted to get back at his lover for killing his beloved niece.
Right. And they both kind of fingered each other on and off. But it was learned very early on. And so then Toole recanted that, but he still professed over and over and over again that he did this. And it was actually, it seemed like this was the one thing that really seemed like it affected him. Like it wasn't killing women or old ladies or this old guy that he was an arsonist and he had set fires to certain things and people died. He wasn't upset about those things, but this one seemed to really haunt him. And he constantly said that he wished he'd never done it. So the way it happened was Adam was accompanying his mom to a Sears store in Hollywood, Florida. And like Colleen had said, there was that brand new video game display, and we all loved those back in the day. Like I remember them. I wanted to go play, it started off with Atari and then it was Nintendo, like Super Mario Brothers and everything. We always wanted to stop and play them. But there was a brand new video game display and he was super excited about it. And he asked his mom if he could stay and play while she picked up some lights in a nearby department area. Because her husband worked for, hotels, and he said that there was just this great deal on these lights. Go down and grab some. And she said she'd be right back. She didn't think she'd be more than 5-10 minutes. And when she returned, Adam was gone, and he had agreed to stay right there until she got right back. But there was this disagreement at the display between several of the kids, and they had a 17-year-old security guard. I don't know why the freaking heck they would have a 17-year-old security guard. Like I can't imagine a 17-year-old being responsible for being a security guard at a Sears. And this poor girl has felt like she has felt guilty her whole life for feeling like she's the one who caused this, because Kathy, what she did was she told all the kids they had to leave, and she made them all go outside instead of like asking them, hey, where are your parents? What are you doing? Where are they? You need to go find your mom or whatever. She just kicked them all out. And that was where he was abducted from, the sidewalk outside this loading dock. And she, for a long time, Adam's mom had come up to her and shown her a picture of Adam, and she denied for the longest times that she recognized Adam, but she later admitted she did because she felt guilty. So. And he was abducted, and 2 weeks later, his head was found severed, floating in a canal just a few miles from where he'd been taken. And like we said earlier, his body was never recovered. And this happened on July 27th of 1981 in Hollywood, Florida.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back.
What if you could be a true crime detective right from the comfort of your own home? Dispatch is an interactive serial mystery that unfolds over several months. Imagine the experience of an escape room in your own home, a new kind of escape called Dispatch. It's a subscription box that's a step apart from everyday entertainment. Better than a book, more engaging than television. Think of it as an immersive mystery where you wear the detective hat. The story begins with your first delivery, or dispatch, if you will. In it, you'll find physical clues that lead you to the web and back to the real world to unravel a mysterious crime. Grab a friend, the whole family, and your thinking cap, and get ready to put your heads together for one mind-bending ride as additional details are revealed with every package. Head over to our Instagram at www.instagram.com/truecrimewives and click on the link in our bio. Then choose the dispatch button to start your own true crime adventure today.
In every episode, we like to serve up a special dish from the state that our crime takes place. So here's our resident Cajun Mama Ty to tell you what our true crime dish of the week is.
Hey guys, it's me, Cajun Mama Ty. Yeah, I'm back in Louisiana again. And as we open this second season, beginning a new year for our podcast, The Good Wives have started already. So excited to share a new recipe with you. And today's new recipe is a Cajun favorite of mine, crab and corn chowder. I can't wait to share the recipe with you. See you later.
It's sad. The 17-year-old security guard, essentially she was a child.
Yeah. I can't.
And to have to live with that.
And the pressure, why would anybody have a 17-year-old security guard? I just don't get it. I mean, yeah, I understand it's the 80s, but really?
Well, there's so much pressure on essentially a child to not only pretty much run the security of a mall and the expensive things in a mall, but then to be the security and to say to adults and children that, okay, you're out of here, and then be responsible for doing that. And the disagreement that happened were between some of the older kids, and Adam just happened to be there. And Adam was a very shy kid and just kind of didn't speak up, and he just kind of went out with the kids. And
a lot of people saw this go down. Like, they saw Otis approach him and speak to him, but they thought at first, well, okay, that must be his dad, right? And the one guy, he's upset with himself because he didn't realize, like he said, you could look at Adam and see how Adam was dressed and look at Otis, and you could, like, they talk about all the time, everybody who has ever been in contact with him talks about this foul odor that emanated from him. And he was dirty and grungy and his clothes were nasty. And he said he should have realized, like, these two don't go together. Like, but he thought, well, maybe his dad had been working or whatever. And Adam went with him willingly and got in the car because he offered him candy. And that was the last time anyone saw him. And there was all kinds of witnesses that, for whatever reason, didn't come forward at different times. A lot of them thought, well, surely we've never heard anything else about it, so it must have been solved. So a lot of them didn't come forward because of that. Some of them were embarrassed. Others didn't even think that what they had seen until many, many years later when they were seeing other stuff, So, I mean, it's unfortunate that this happened over, 10 minutes at a display. And the reason that his mom took so long to get back was that they didn't have the lamps that they were looking for. So the guy had to go in the back, and he was looking forever for them. And there was, there was some miscommunication as to the lamps being on sale. And so by the time, she got back to him, it had been a little minute, but she thought, he's safe. He's in the store. He's just right over here. And then sadly, no. So, I mean, it changed the nation. I can honestly say it really did. Nobody thought that this was something that would happen to their child.
Yeah, there was before Adam went missing, I think it's like when we hear in all the shows when there's a crime, like, oh, this is an area where people didn't lock their doors and leaving your kids outside by themselves, or, letting them travel. I mean, I have a friend that talks about being 5 and 6 years old, and she's in her early 50s now, and she was riding the buses and the trains in Brooklyn into the city at 5, 6 years old with her little brother.
Right.
And like, it's crazy now. If somebody saw a 5-year-old with a 3-year-old alone on a bus or a train, they would probably call the cops.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, it was perfectly normal. So, you know, I even remember after this, when I was a little bit older and we would go to the mall on the weekends, you would still see it. You would pass the toy aisle and there would be kids going wild in the toy aisle and their parents weren't anywhere around them.
Right, right. Well, and I think that, like, you know, when it first happens, parents like lock down, you know, they freak out, they lock down. And then as time goes on, you just kind of, you know, it goes back to normal. Yeah, you just go back to normal. But I also remember hearing a case, like, and this one infuriated me. Like, I was so angry at this, was it was a mom who had a brand new baby and she had a 4-year-old son. And the son wanted to go to his Head Start or preschool, whatever it was, and it was just down the street. And he didn't have to cross any like roads or anything. It was literally like down the block. And so he bugged his mom, and the baby was having a hard morning. She was having a terrible time with the baby, and he kept bugging her, Mom, I want to go. Mom, I want to go. And she kept telling him, no, you got to wait. You got to wait. And he was like, Mom, I can just walk there. Just let me walk there. It's right here. Just let me go. And he's 4. Like, for me, I would have never let my 4-year-old out of the site. But then what happened was another neighborhood kid that was like, I think he was 12 or 13, ended up taking the kid into the woods nearby and killing him. And me, I was like, I was livid with the mother because her reasoning was, well, he didn't have to cross any streets. I'm like, ma'am, he is 4. Like, why
is that the one that
street?
That he like did some really horrible, very vile things and posed his body?
It was terrible.
It was, and they didn't. They would never have caught the kid if he hadn't have been. He was very willing to talk to the police, and then he like implicated himself, like he knew things that he shouldn't have known.
Right, and it
was
terrible. Didn't. It was a terrible case, and I felt, you know, it's one of those. When it was a long time ago,
Louis C.K.
he used to have a bit that he called, of course, but maybe, and it was like, you know, of course this is awful. Of course, your kid dying from a nut poisoning is awful, but maybe, you know, survival of the fittest, right? And he'd go on about all these different things. It was super interesting and funny, but I've always kind of lived by that. Like, of course, but maybe. Of course, it's terrible that her son, you know, ended up killed, and it's heinous, and I felt for the mother. But then on the other hand, I'm like, but maybe don't let your 4-year-old walk down the street to the daycare. Like, you know.
Well,
and it's not me being insensitive, but I would never allow my 4-year-old or my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old to walk down the street without at least going out and watching them as they go. Like, okay, the baby's crying, but you can still stand at the doorstep with the crying baby and watch your 4-year-old walk down the block.
Well, and just like how in this case there weren't, you know, the faces on the milk cartons and the Amber Alerts.
Nothing like that before this.
The police didn't even really take it seriously. Like, they wouldn't do a missing persons report immediately and start searching.
Right, they had the wait.
They would make parents, well, let's wait 24 hours, and you know, usually the kid will come back. And I mean, it's vital to be out there in the very beginning. How far, if someone takes your kid, how far can they get in 24 hours? And back then, it wasn't even a procedure. There was no procedure on how to handle this. It was like, oh, your kid is not here? All right, let's see what happens. Let's see if he turns up in the next day or so. And if not, we'll take it from there.
This started the faces on the milk cartons. And there was actually like a doctor like a psychologist who was against that, saying that was detrimental to other children because they would see these faces on the milk cartons and it was detrimental to them and scared them. And I'm like, yes, exactly. That's what it's supposed to do. It should scare them so that they don't run away and they don't run off from their parents. And I remember, like, so when I became a mom, my best friend, she had a daughter who was 1 year older than my oldest child. And, I worked for Disney, so I took them to Disneyland, for free. And so we got in and we'd pack lunches and have a great day of it, Well, Chelsea was always prone to running away. Like she'd just run off in a store. And I was always forever telling my sister, dude, you cannot allow her to just run off like that. She's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girl in California near the border. You can't do that. Like she'll be trafficked out of here. And so we were at Disney one day and we were in the teacups, and I opened the door as the ride finished and Chelsea was gone. Literally for 45 minutes. Gone. I was petrified, and I'm trying to hold it together for, my best friend. And I consider her my sister. I don't have sisters and brothers, so that's my family. And I was like looking desperately for her. Thankfully, this lady taps me on the shoulder and is like, hey, is this, I think I've seen the little girl you're looking for. Is that her over there? And of course it was Chelsea. And so I'm like livid at this point. And my sister's like, oh, Chelsea, you scared mommy. Don't do that. And I got down on her face and I'm like, oh, hell no. No, you are never going to run away like that again. If you do, you'll never come back to Disneyland with Auntie A. So I'm sorry. No. And she's like, don't yell at her. I'm like, are you serious? Like, she could have died, Kristen. Did you just see how upset you were? Like, are you kidding me? No, you. And so, but yeah, none of that was there before all of this. Like, we had nothing to even organize. They didn't even know how to organize a search for a kid. Like,
all right. And John Walsh, Adam's father, is responsible for creating America's Most Wanted, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and the Missing Children Act of 1982.
Right.
And he has brought thousands of criminals to justice and helped shape the organization of missing persons with the FBI. But his own son's murder and disappearance went unsolved for 27 years.
Right.
And one of the original investigators, the Detective Sergeant Joe Matthews, who eventually convinced the Hollywood police to charge Toole. He was brought on from the Miami Police Department because he was the premier expert in administering lie detector tests. But he was never able to give one to Toole because the lead detective, Jack Kaufman, did not like a big city detective coming in and trying to take over his investigation. So he was able to finally get Joe dismissed from the case.
Yeah. And like, and the thing is Joe feels guilty because he's who even brought up Campbell, which is the guy that Hoffman had a hard on for, like, totally, by accident. Like, he was talking with John, and he administered John's lie detector test, obviously came back, no culpability whatsoever. And in that, there was like a conversation about Campbell being John mentored him. He was a young kid who was troubled, and they took him in. He lived with him and his wife in the new house that they had built. And one of the deals is that he had to stay in school or he couldn't stay there. And so he had dropped out of school. So John had asked him to leave, but John was also gone a lot. So what happened is John's wife, and I don't know how to say her name. I don't know if it's Rev or Riva. So that's why I've just got John's wife. So but she and Campbell ended up having like a very short affair, and everybody, John knew about it. They all talked about it. Everything was fine. And he was actually Adam's godfather. Like, and so even in the interview, he mentioned him to Joe Matthews, and basically was like, well, I mean, that's the only person that, because he was going through his history, because one of the things with Joe was that he didn't just administer lie detector tests. He really got to know a person before administering it to really understand the results that he was looking at and to get a comfortability. So when John brought that up, it was in passing, and they asked him, well, where is Campbell? And he said, he's out looking for him right now. He's searching. He's out there in the search party. And so then, Joe actually administered a lie detector test to Campbell, came back perfectly fine. But when he was asked by Hoffman, like, well, what's next? And Joe answered, oh, I've already done what's next. He goes, what do you mean you've done what's next? And basically that's when Joe told him about Campbell, and he's like, what do you mean? This is our guy. Don't you know this is our guy? And so he couldn't get off it after that. And so, but Joe was actually called in several times, at least 3 times on this case. And each time he met resistance from different detectives, different chiefs. And it's truly, truly, truly staggering how badly they bungled this case. I mean, just terribly.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back.
The Good Wives always like to enjoy a good glass of wine while we dish true crime. One of our favorite wine clubs is the California Wine Club. Each month, they feature a different winery and hand select 2 of their best wines for their club members. With 5 different club options, we are sure one will fit your tastes, whether you are a longtime wine connoisseur or a wine newbie. And right now, through March 31st, get a 50% off your first purchase of a club membership. To get the savings link, go find us on Facebook at https://www.facebook.com/truecrimewives. Click on our special California Wine Club link, and you can enjoy a glass of wine with your crime, just like the Good Wives.
Oh, goodness. I wish y'all could smell what's cooking in my kitchen on this Sunday afternoon. Hey guys, it's me, Cajun Mama Ty, back in Louisiana, cooking up some good Cajun food. So, as you all know, we are going to cook an easy crab and corn chowder tonight. So the recipe calls for a bell pepper, an onion, celery, and you know what that's called, our Cajun Trinity. We want to use margarine. We'll need some whole milk or half and half. I prefer half and half because it makes your sauce really, really creamy. Some picked crab meat, sweet style cream corn, 2 cans of whole corn, and potato soup. Parsley we're going to use for garnish. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with our Cajun Trinity, the bell pepper, onions, and celery, and we're going to saute. Saute is a French word. It means to kind of cook your veggies down. So we're going to saute our onion, celery, bell pepper with a little bit of butter. We're going to take it until they're good golden brown. Once that's done, you want to add that, add the corn, both the cream style and the regular whole kernel corn. But you want to make sure that one of the 2 of them is a sweet corn. Most of the times you'll find sweet corn either in the frozen section, fresh frozen for the whole kernel corn, or the canned corn for your cream style corn. So we're going to put all of that together. We're going to add the milk or cream. Preferably, I like to use half and half because it makes the sauce a whole lot more creamier. And you're going to add your crab meat. Once you cook it down, you keep cooking it for about 15-20 minutes. You want to make sure that your the soup or the chowder is thick and creamy. If you feel like it's not creamy enough, go ahead and add a little bit more of that half and half and keep it cooking. Once it's done, you'll add your seasoning, some Tony Chachere's, Slap Your Mama, or even just some salt and pepper. Then you will add the parsley on top. We don't eat it with anything. It's more of like a soup. But it's so good. I hope you enjoy this recipe, and I can't wait to share more recipes with you this season.
So on our little break, guys, what I actually found out was we have pronounced a couple names wrong, so I'm going to correct those. So it is Reve, and it apparently, according to John Walsh, it is Otis, which I've never heard that name in my
Interesting.
life. I've never heard that name.
I've never either.
I just assumed somebody was saying it wrong because I've heard him say it both ways, but I'm going to go with what John Walsh said, so.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he knows his wife's name and the killer of his son's name. I don't know. So sorry about that, guys. So it's Otis Toole and Reve Walsh. So just for the clarification, and from here forward, we'll go on with the right names. Anyway, so basically, Hoffman was a young and inexperienced detective when Adam Walsh's case was dumped in his lap. He had never worked a missing person case or a murder case for that matter. He was really young and inexperienced and in a small town. So he didn't have all the different things that he should have, that a big city cop would have. Even now, obviously there's so many much more advancements now, but back then even they were just a very small satellite kind of location. And that might be a reasonable enough explanation for how terribly he handled this case, but it's really not.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, it felt like my whole world came tumbling down.
Patient Advocate Foundation is here for you, providing free one-on-one practical support to patients with a cancer diagnosis. Call us at 800-532-5274. Patient Advocate Foundation can assist in navigating disability benefits and health insurance options. PAF also helps in accessing vital services, medications, and financial resources for both medical and household expenses. Visit patientadvocate.org or call 800-532-5274.
Recently, our client Tommy met his banker to discuss continuing his father's restaurant legacy. In us, he found a partner that understood the importance of passing the torch. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy.
Because he wasn't just unexperienced and young, he was pretty much incompetent. And he screwed this case up so terribly that 27 years passed and it could have been solved in 1983. And it's not just there was missing evidence. There was at one point in time, I just watched a thing because I was trying to clarify the names, where John was saying that he went in and he was talking to a director of the FBI after, making America's Most Wanted and working with them and for the, the National Children's, what is it called? I can't remember. Say it again.
The Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Yes, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. He actually went to the director of the FBI, and the FBI director said, well, just get me the carpet. I can test it right now, and we'll have an answer. And the carpet was missing.
Right, the carpet was missing. The car was missing.
They gave the car back to the guy. Right,
everything was gone. The detective had refused to process evidence. He had locked onto a suspect. He created false stories.
Right.
And
he ruined other cops in other towns, in other states, in other towns, their careers. The one guy that he accused of tampering with the evidence and feeding, Toole the information, that guy ended up getting stuck back to being a beat cop. He was accused of being, tampering with evidence and feeding this file to a convicted murderer. What? But he was just dead set on Jimmy Campbell. And that's, he did everything he could to prove that it was Jimmy Campbell and everything he could to disprove that it was Toole instead of the other way around. It just was bad.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back. Every great podcast needs a great website. Currently, our mother company, Mad Ginger Entertainment, is building their website using Bluehost. Bluehost is one of the best and most affordable web hosting platforms available. Plans start as low as $2.95 a month, and you can even integrate it with WordPress. So if you need your own website or affordable web hosting, grab our discount link in the description and get your podcast a bigger presence online at low costs. We absolutely love hearing from our listeners, and we'd like to invite you to send us a question for us to answer or a case you'd like us to cover. You can drop us an email at goodwivesdish, that's DISH, @gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Bullheaded.
Yeah, and this is what kept the case unsolved for 27 years was
Right.
This guy.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I mean, Jimmy came up really early in the investigation, just a couple days into it. He is Adam's godfather. He was, he lived with them at one point. And yes, there was a problem between, Reve and Campbell, and they had an affair. But you know what? He'd moved out, and they felt terrible. He was still Adam's baseball coach. He was still close to the family. They realized it was a mistake. They all agreed that that John was not home and he wasn't paying attention and he wasn't taking care of the family, in the way that they needed emotionally. And that's how this happened with her and, with Reve and Jimmy. But they worked through it and they stayed strong, which, I mean, most parents, I'll be honest, 90% of people who suffer this type of loss or lose a child to kidnapping or murder or whatever, they don't survive. Their marriages do not survive.
Oh yeah, there's divorce. There's a lot of suicide.
Yeah, because they can't take it. And instead, Reve, I want to applaud Reve and John because instead they focused their efforts on how do we change this, and they did everything for all these years. And John even said, he spent 2 weeks in the police station just beating it, constantly going in and talking with them and impressing upon them. And he didn't believe it was Jimmy ever, he kept telling them, I think you know who this is. And he would go back year after year after year and they would tell him, we don't know. And they did know. They did. And it's really sad. Basically, Campbell wasn't even on the list of suspects until Joe mentioned him. And then that was it for him,
it's so sad because it's not just, oh, there's a murder. It's like, this is a child that was murdered. Like, his body was never found. It was just his head. There, most likely there was a sexual assault that they can't prove.
Well, and the thing is Toole would have been happy to lead them to his body. He led them to where they found the head. And he would have been happy to lead them further, but because Hoffman was so terrible to him, and disbelieved him and was just horrible, which, okay, he's a murderer. Okay, I don't have a lot of respect for him, but he was willing to be cooperative and Hoffman just disregarded him. And again, like he said, this was the one case that bothered him. He told everyone. And every time he did, he was very emotional about it. So...
Right. Maybe don't be a dick about it.
Maybe don't be a dick about it. Yeah.
Right. And be like, hey, just for example, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. Like Jeffrey Dahmer, when he got caught, he wasn't an asshole about it. He was honest and he didn't lie about any of it. Right. And he was like, I don't have anything to hide. You caught me. This is everything.
Well, serial killers are known for helping find other serial killers. Many of them have profiled other killers and brought them to justice because a lot of them, they know there's something wrong with them. But they don't know how, it's a compulsion. They don't know how to stop. Toole said that in many of his confessions. He was a convicted killer and a rapist. So why you would ever think that he's not telling you something, or at least give it some water, weight in water. No, he just ignores everything this guy says. And he had, the amount of information he gave this detective, they even said that the director of the FBI, the same guy who basically said that, I could test the carpet and have this back to you in a minute, was like, it was the district attorney in the county later, was like, I have convicted way, way worse on less, I mean, just unbelievable how bad fucked this up.
Well, and there was the serial killer in California. He does voice, or did, still does. He does like audio books.
Oh, that's Ed Kemper.
Yes, Ed Kemper. Like,
right.
They're terrible people, but they're pretty much really honest people when they get caught.
Right.
For the most part.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, it just. A lot of like Bundy helped profile the Green River, I mean, so it's not unheard of. And yeah, okay, I get he felt his chain was being jerked around because of Henry Lee Lucas and the whole debacle with that crap. But you know what? It was obvious. Like, they said it was visibly and physically obvious when he was speaking about this murder that it affected him in a way, and that it was different than when he would speak about others. So, I mean, he was originally from Jacksonville, and he'd been in and out of prison and jail over and over again. And in August of 1983, Toole was in prison for 15 years on arson charges. And then Henry Lee Lewis was picked up on suspected murders and fingered Toole as an accomplice in many. So that's how they had him in custody to even speak with him. So they'd basically gone in to talk with him. Some detectives from all over the country came to interview Lucas. Like we said, he was the confession killer. And one detective was from Jacksonville, Florida, and his name was Buddy Terry. And this is the guy who gets screwed in the end. So Lucas confessed to 8 murders of women in the area between the years of 1979 and 1981. And then he was also indicted, or he also indicated that he and Toole had set a fire in a rooming house that took the life of George Sonnenberg. So Terry was in there questioning Toole regarding the fire and the death of Sonnenberg. And 9 days later, on September 8th, 1983, he was indicated in Jacksonville, or I'm sorry, that's indicted. That one is indicted. He was indicted in Jacksonville on charges of murder and arson. And during his await for trial, a detective from Cocoa Beach, Florida, by the name of Kendrick, came up to question him on a murder in Brevard County. Now, Brevard County is Cocoa, whereas Broward County is Jacksonville. So he just got them mixed up.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back.
What if you could be a true crime detective right from the comfort of your own home? Dispatch is an interactive serial mystery that unfolds over several months. Imagine the experience of an escape room in your own home, a new kind of escape called Dispatch. It's a subscription box that's a step apart from everyday entertainment. Better than a book, more engaging than television, think of it as an immersive mystery where you wear the detective hat. The story begins with your first delivery, or dispatch, if you will. In it, you'll find physical clues that lead you to the web and back to the real world to unravel a mysterious crime. Grab a friend, the whole family, and your thinking cap, and get ready to put your heads together for one mind-bending ride, as additional details are revealed with every package. Head over to our Instagram at www.instagram.com/truecrimewives and click on the link in our bio, then choose the dispatch button to start your own true crime adventure today.
Hey guys, it's me, Cajun Mama Ty. And guess what time of year it is here in Louisiana? Well, mostly in South Louisiana. It's Mardi Gras time. So, I want to share with you two phrases today, French phrases. And first French phrase is going to be Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is known in Louisiana. It is translated as Fat Tuesday. Fat Tuesday's been celebrated for years. It's Mardi Gras time. It's the time right before Lent. It's kind of like when you have this big, huge party waiting for the beginning of Lent. Most of the people here in South Louisiana are of the Catholic faith, and most of the Cajun people, I should say, are of the Catholic faith. And in the Catholic faith, Lent is a 40-day time of fasting, time of giving up things, doing special things, and it's a time of really working hard to make yourself a better person for when Jesus dies on the cross and rises up and our sins are forgiven. So Mardi Gras time is that time of year. But I have to share with you another phrase. And the other phrase I want to share with you is the Louisiana, I guess we could call it the Louisiana motto. It's Les le bon temps rouler. And guess what that means? Let the good times roll. Yes, you'll hear that throughout the Mardi Gras season. Next time, I may play some Mardi Gras music before my French word to introduce you to some awesome Cajun Zydeco music. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to join y'all back again with the French word of the day. See you later.
And then on October 10th in 83, Kendrick sat down with Toole. He realized pretty quick that he was getting no information on his murder and was packing up to leave when Toole asked him if he was from Fort Lauderdale. And he realized Toole had confused the Brevard County with the Broward County. So Kendrick asked him if he did something in Fort Lauderdale, and Toole admitted that he did. So he kind of was thinking ahead, and which very smart detective.
Right.
Like, oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. So Kendrick observed a huge change in Toole's demeanor. He was gripping the sides of the chair, shaking and rocking, and looking down at the floor nervously. And Kendrick felt for a man who had confessed to 65 murders to be so visibly upset about Fort Lauderdale, he must have stumbled onto something huge. And they can't really, he had confessed to the 65 murders, but they really can't prove that he actually did these 65 murders.
Right.
That's why they call him the confession killer. But this was something that he actually had this physical reaction to. And so Kendrick sat down and Toole confessed for the first time in great detail. And when he was done, Kendrick found Detective Terry, and they contacted the Hollywood police, who said it sounded like the Adam Walsh case.
Christina, you want to talk? You haven't talked much.
Yeah. Oh, the Hollywood police didn't come after Kendrick Toole's confession. Instead, a detective, Jay Villa, one of the first to interview Lucas, came, and it was regarding a case of a 16-year-old girl in Monroe, Louisiana. Again, Toole thought that he was there about Adam, and he began confessing again, sobbing the entire time.
Right.
And on October 19th, Hoffman finally showed up to interview Toole, and he was less than kind to the fellow detective. He accused both Villa and Buddy Terry of feeding him information from a file about Adam Walsh. They felt that Hoffman could care less about Toole. He believed that Toole's 20-plus confessions were false and fed to him by other people, so he worked more to disprove his confessions than to prove the evidence that he had. It was as if he just could not get Campbell out of his head. So Hoffman spoke to many of Toole's family, and all said that he confessed over and over, but Hoffman just continued to discard the confession. He discarded that Toole took them right to where Adam's head was found. He discarded that Toole identified the exact spheres and location that Adam was abducted, and that many eyewitnesses came forward to say they identified him. It was really super strange.
It was. And the thing is like, there was so much evidence, like his car matched. He matched the description that people had given him. It was on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Just unbelievably how terrible it was. And it just, I'm at a loss for words, because this one really just ticks me off.
Well, and the evidence, and it's speculation at this point because the technology didn't exist well at the time, but Luminol at the time said that there could have been a luminol imprint of Adam's face in the carpet.
Have you seen it?
When I was diagnosed with cancer, it felt like my whole world came tumbling down.
Patient Advocate Foundation is here for you, providing free one-on-one practical support to patients with a cancer diagnosis. Call us at 800-532-5274. Patient Advocate Foundation can assist in navigating disability benefits and health insurance options. PAF also helps in accessing vital services, medications, and financial resources for both medical and household expenses. Visit patientadvocate.org or call 800-532-5274.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
I mean, it is, wow.
It's pretty, yeah, it looks like Adam's face in the floor carpet of the car.
Yeah.
And even John Walsh, his father, was like, that's Adam's face.
Yeah.
And it's very disturbing. And why I had to mention Jeffrey Dahmer is because at one point in time, Jeffrey Dahmer was suspected of actually being Adam's murderer, because at the time of the murder, Jeffrey Dahmer was actually in Florida. He was in Florida at the time because he was actually in the military and was on leave. He was just kind of chilling around in Florida at the time. And
he wasn't in that specific area.
No, he was just chilling around in Florida. And there, Jeffrey Dahmer was known to pick up young boys, but Adam was 10 years younger than Jeffrey Dahmer's youngest victim, which is a lot younger. And Jeffrey Dahmer was also, his victims were usually more ethnic and other races. So it was also a little bit of a different background than Adam. And
well, I mean, at one time they even announced in the news that they had their man, and they announced Tool, and then it went nowhere. So there was like witnesses that never came forward. It just went on and on.
Well, I think it's because like, oh, we can find his body. So, Jeffrey Dahmer, he must have eaten him. And it's like, yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer ate his victims, but that doesn't mean that Adam was eaten. Like, you just don't know where his body is. That doesn't mean his body is in Jeffrey Dahmer's freezer. Jeffrey Dahmer was even like, nope, I would tell you if I had eaten that kid. I didn't. I told you, literally, Jeffrey Dahmer was like, no, I told you exactly whose bones and body parts are in my house.
Right.
Like, I have no reason to lie to you.
Right. I mean, it's just, I don't know. This could have been solved.
If that detective could, right, if the detective hadn't been such a dick.
Right. Well, I mean, and the thing is it went on and on. Like, so the chief covered it up, they covered it up, and then a new chief came in. So then Joe Matthews gets sent back in, and then that guy, like, the detective that was there at that point in time, because Hoffman wasn't there anymore, that guy, like, was supposed to go down and take Tool's confession and finally allow Joe to administer a lie detector test, because they would never let them do a lie detector test. And then that kid, like, that guy goes and calls in another brand new, like, correspondent that supposedly does lie detector tests too. And he's like, well, I'm going to take him. That's who we're taking. And Joe's like, I am the premier freaking expert in this field. What are you talking about? And he had already, like, established a relationship with Tool at that point. He'd talked to him. He made him feel comfortable because Tool wasn't going to do it at that time. And so he made him feel all comfortable because he basically was talking about, this is for research, and because that was one of the reasons why Tool did waver back and forth, was because, I mean, child killers don't do well in prison.
Yep.
But he confessed over and over again in different scenarios. And it seemed like every single time it was like, because
needed to unburden his soul. Like this was the one thing. And I just don't even understand it. Like chief after chief, person after person. I mean, I understand. Okay, I get it. Nobody wants a blemish on their department, but there's a child missing. There is a family in pain.
Well, at some point you have to say, like, okay, well, maybe pretty much our department has effed up for the last 20 years.
Right.
We decided that we're gonna be better than this, and now we are better, and we're gonna right the wrong, and we're gonna do what's right now and be the bigger people.
And then at one point in time, one of the things they did was they released. So, we've talked about this before of when public records get released or don't get released. In certain cases, they don't because it's an open and active investigation. Well, in this case, they ended up releasing them because the media was like crying for it. Because at some point in time, they even accused John of being, in the mob because of his real estate dealings, and that the mob killed him. And then, like you said, Jeffrey Dahmer was fingered at one point in time and everything. So the media was calling for this. And Joe, was like, please do not release these. Like that throws out any way of us ever solving this case, because then all the information is out there. They went ahead and released it. And so then once they did that, several years later was when actually Reve is the one who asked Joe to come back on this case. And she said, please, can you please look at everything one more time? I know you're retired. I know that, but this is like the case that haunted him, and so they asked him to look through the files again. And when he really sat down and started looking, it was amazingly crazy how many things were missed. Like we said, the car was returned, the carpet was gone. But the way they end up solving this is basically by, a new chief comes on, a detective is brought in. Okay, so they start working together, and it's one of the detectives that he didn't have a great history with the last time, but he wasn't terrible, like Hoffman. And so they ended up getting a set of negatives from one of the crime labs. And basically, they were told originally that they didn't have the negatives. Well, then when Joe calls over there and asks, they're like, what do you mean? We have them right here. We've never processed them. I can process them right now and send them over to you. And that's where like the luminol of his face was taken a picture of, because they never processed the pictures of the car. Like,
unbelievable.
It truly is. And this case, like, I feel so bad for this family, a family who has done so much to advance technology, to advance looking for children, to constantly, they were asked over and over and over again by media. And, the media people weren't doing anything wrong, but I can't imagine being asked this over and over again of like, so you've created the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, but you can't solve your own child's murder. Like, insensitive, I know, but I mean, it is something that a journalist would ask, but can you imagine having to hear that over and over again for 27 effing years, knowing that you really do believe you know who killed your kid and they won't do anything?
It's gotta be so upsetting that you have to be the bigger person. And honestly, like, John Walsh is an American hero, and that he is the bigger person, and he's gone on to help the lives of thousands of people. And you can watch what he's done on several TV shows throughout the past decades.
Right.
He's on the show The Hunt with John Walsh. His son is on that one with him, right?
Yes, I think so. And then he, obviously they did America's Most Wanted for a very long time. They passed many laws. They've been spearheading them for years and years. And what really happens, is when when the chief of police, he actually apologized to them, the final chief of police, he publicly apologized to them, and said that they had made huge, egregious, mistakes, and that he was very sorry. And the Walshes take it like with the most grace I've ever seen. Like, if it had been me, I don't know that I would have been able to say, people make mistakes, we're just happy it's been solved now. We thank you for your apology. That's what we've always wanted, is to know who killed our son. And that's what mattered, Like, I don't think that would have been my stance. I'm sorry. I would have been pissed. Like,
yeah.
So
I just don't. They literally are some of the best people I can imagine. Like, on that scale of 0 to 10,
right,
and how good you have to be,
they
literally are an 11.
Right. And the thing is it doesn't mean, the thing that pisses me off is, yeah, okay, so they've got their answer, and he was charged. He was charged after he was dead. So,
right.
So
the justice isn't there.
Did he serve a life sentence for other crimes? Okay, sure. Yeah, he did. Did he die in prison? Yeah, he did. But they never had, the thing for me is he could have given them their son's body back. He knew what he had done. He knew. And I think he would have been willing, if somebody had listened to him, to actually help them. And then they could have had peace. Because
to know they had so many years to do it and didn't do it is just, it just makes you so angry just to think about that. 27 years, really?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Sometimes, police think they have a suspect, but this guy, like Hoffman, how could you be so blinded to everything else around you when there's undeniable evidence and you're just refusing to look at it? How is that a detective?
How do you talk to every single one of his family members and they tell you, yeah, he told me. Yep, he told me at a barbecue. Well, he told me at da-da-da-da. Well, I was on the phone with him last week and he told me. Like, are you serious? They all knew. But what were they supposed to do? And these, I cannot understand it. And it's like everything that you think of as bad and corrupt with a police officer. And here it is. Like, you want to think that they're the good guys, and usually they are. I believe that the men and women out there fighting for justice are amazing generally. But then you've got the bad apple that just makes it terrible.
Exactly. Yeah. And all it takes is the one person that's going to set a bad example for everybody. Because if he had just not been a dick, and somebody would have talked to Toole, and at least on Toole's deathbed, would maybe have gone to him and would have been like, hey, I'm really sorry, would have been a bigger person. Even if he had gone to see him every day for a month and apologized to be a bigger person, Toole might have been like, okay, this is what I did. Well, this is where his body is.
It's unforgivable.
Anything.
I think that the Walshes are amazing for being able to forgive. Wow. They're the bigger people, let me tell you, because
yes,
that you ever want to talk about being the bigger person, go talk to Reve and John Walsh, because man, and yeah, they have other children. They've gone on to raise 3 other kids, and they've done lots of good work and everything, but nothing is going to bring back Adam. It's not going to give them, it doesn't give them justice now, but I don't know. For me, it's hard.
Right. So I'm just reading an article that Toole had told people that the details that Toole never kept his confessions straight. He said he picked up Adam outside of Sears, or was it a mall merry-go-round? He said he bribed the boy with candy, except when he said he used a baseball glove. He said he threw the boy's body into the same Central Florida canal as the head, the only part of Adam ever found. He said he buried the body off of a highway and burned it in his mother's yard of Jacksonville.
Right.
Like, he said he buried the body. And who knows if any of that is true. They said that he cut the head off with a machete.
Well, there was a difference in that, and that's the thing. Like, where I got a lot of my information. Obviously, John Walsh wrote a book a while back, but the newest one that's out is actually by Matthews, and it's an amazing book, and it's called Bringing Adam Home. So I read that in 2 days, and it is literally week by week, day by day, month by month, year by year of this 27-year, quest. And it goes over everything. But the thing with the machete is there was actually 2 different knives. And so the thing is that originally he said bayonet, which was given to him, I believe it was given to him by his father. It was definitely a family member. And then the machete came from a person that he worked for a long time. So when he said bayonet, Hoffman, or one of the other, I think it was Hoffman. Hoffman said, "You mean machete?" And so then he just went with that. And so that was what he said. So there was a lot of different things like that he would say, because he would get like a vibe from somebody of what they wanted to hear or whatever. But it didn't change the facts that he was able to give over and over and over again that were the same. So yes, there were varying stories, but the heart of the story didn't change.
So, God, this police officer makes me so mad.
It's a really bad one. And I think this is one we will discuss in greater detail, because there is so much more to this one. Thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives.
Don't forget to join our Patreon member club to get the full recipe shared tonight, inside documents and pictures from the case, bonus mini podcast episodes, live YouTube discussion, and an exclusive invitation to our discussion group on Facebook, and get some amazing Good Wives merch.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at True Crime Wives. And for more inside information, check us out on YouTube at Murder by Design, where we're currently talking about a few different true crime cases, from bullying murders to serial killers. We dish it all.
Have a good one from the Good Wives, serving up true crime, one dish at a time.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.